every single patient that comes through here is a barometer for the overall health of the habitat that they're living in. So none of that is lost, and it's like all of our patient stories are told one way or another through our education team, through our clinic team, like explaining a volunteer how to care for that individual patient, or through the collective data that can now go and influence policy and better protections as well. Bat populations plummeted during the white nose syndrome outbreak, and that was an introduced fungus in caves on spelunkers' equipment that they didn't know was there. But it's a fungus that exists in the bats in England and in that region where those bats are adapted to that fungus, but it was something brand new for our species. And we lost up to 8 million bats, I think now, since 2006, and all but 2 of our species in Maine and New Hampshire are listed as special concern, threatened, or endangered. And so that species and that story is a really great example of that connection between wildlife and human health and conservation medicine and why it's needed. Up until then, the USDA had never quantified what the environmental service that bats do for our country at night while we're sleeping, especially in the Midwest and the South, where a lot of our agriculture comes from. And the first year that we had lost a significant amount of bats, the USDA was able to quantify that bats provide about $3 billion worth of agricultural pest control for our country every single year, again, at night while we're sleeping for free with no side effects. So those kind of environmental and ecosystem services that wildlife, even water quality, provide to us is often overlooked. Another example is the eastern screech owl. A huge part of their diet is moths during the spring and fall. And so if we think about if we took away all of the eastern screech owls and they weren't hunting like gypsy moths, many people can remember big outbreaks of gypsy moths during the 80s and 90s. Forestry is still a huge part of our economy in the Northeast. And so if they weren't hunting all of those, that's just another, species and an example of that could destroy our forest crops for the year. So there's all of these connections that are maybe taken for granted. Our own just well-being, health. I know people report to me all the time, like, I heard the peepers, and when people spot that first cardinal or the ruby-throated hummingbird, or hear those peepers for the first time, that really does something to us. It gives us that hope, and it does something physiologically to us that is just often not recognized in ourselves. So they play such a big role in all of our well-being and the economical side. Again, think about our turkeys or warblers or ruffed grouse, species that are hunting ticks. Lyme disease is a huge issue for us, and loss of work and what that means to our economy as well, and the cost of human health services and healthcare. All of that is tied and can be tied back to every one of our local species.